All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. I'm Paul Yastrzemski from the Developer Relations team, and we're going to kick off our talk about the Oculus Store and the platform. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our publishing and partnership team. First up is Jason Holtman, head of publishing here at Oculus. Next up, we have Chris Jurney, our senior software engineer.
Got a whistle.
Next up, we have Davies, our head of developer relations. And finally, we have Anna Sweet, our head of developer strategy.
Are we on yet? We're not on yet. Now we're on. There we are. We just got introduced. Thanks for having us here, and thanks for coming to this talk. Lots of people have been talking about building things, making things, all the advances in the products. We're going to talk about how you get those to customers and how we can help you do that. A little bit of background on who we are. You heard some of our titles. Just so you know how we're structured at Oculus, we're part of the publishing group. And the publishing group is a little bit different than you might have seen at other groups. We basically have a bunch of engineers that work with us. We've got folks that look like DevRel, so they're out on the road working with you. We've got folks that operate the store. When we think about how we get content out to customers and how we get your content out to customers, we really think about it as an A to Z process. We're all the same group, essentially. We share roles sometimes. We all sit next to each other. It's not as if you're going to meet somebody on the road talking about how to make something, and then 2 weeks later you're going to be talking to somebody who's in a different building working on the store. We're all the same. Same goes as when you have something on the store later on and you're asking a question about, hey, should I do this or that? Or what does this piece of the engine do? Or what does this piece of the SDK do? Or what does this API do? Again, we're all the same group. So we wanted to convey that to you today. Also use this as an opportunity to hear some of your questions and talk to you a little bit about our philosophy of how we do this on the publishing team. So before we dive into some of the things, we just wanted to talk a little bit about how we generally think about and why we have a store and why we do this. We really do think about building a sustainable ecosystem. This is really important to us. And as you listen to our answers and talk to us down the road and have your own ideas about what we're doing, we really think of this as a long-term play. We want to make you super successful. And to make you super successful, we need to have customers. So we'll attract customers. And then the two other ends of that you see up on the slide are great content, and the great content makes money. And then the money flows back to you. This is really easy to say, and it looks like kind of like an MBA Business-y 101 thing, but it is really at the core of how we think about it. So when we make marketing decisions in the store, we don't make short-term marketing decisions. We make long-term marketing decisions. When we make decisions about how we talk to you and what we build for you, we're trying to make sure that you all stay in business, that you keep doing this, that you keep making it, and that you make great things for customers. So that's a little bit about our philosophy. What we'll start with is we're going to have a little bit of overview on the store, just so you see some more pictures, more than you saw in the keynote. And then we'll talk a little bit about the basic structure of how you sort of submit something to us, and then how we work with you as nuts and bolts. That'll take just about 5 minutes or so. Then we've got a set of about 12 prepared questions that we commonly hear. We thought we'd just put the questions up and give you the answers as best we can. And then we're going to leave some time at the end to see if any of that sparked questions that you have for us. And then even if we don't have time at the end of this for you to stand at a mic and ask us a question, we're hoping that you find us at the conference or remember our names or find our emails. We want to be talking to you and working with you. So I'll hand it over to Davies.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to the session. Super excited to be here at Oculus Connect. It seems like every year it just gets better, and that's 2 years running, so far we're 2 for 2. So let's talk a little bit about the Oculus Store. We think about our store as a product in the same vein as we think of the hardware products that we've released, and it's really important to us that the store be a made-for-VR experience. So here you're looking at a rendering of our Gear VR store. And the store is unique because it has been built as a from-the-ground-up VR experience, right? There's no launcher icon that you have to click on. There's no process. You basically put on the headset, and the first thing you're looking at is content. And that's really exciting to us because it means that all of the content that you create is the first thing that people see once they put the headset on, and it's a really clean and elegant in and out experience. In like manner, after you've launched something and played, whatever title it might be, Omega Agent maybe in this example, you're gracefully returned to our store or our home front for VR. And so that hosting of in and out VR experience is really important to us, and we feel like we've gotten that right. Here you're going to see a view of our Rift store. And the Rift Store and the Gear VR Store, in like manner, are the most important channels so that you guys can deliver content to the customers, right? We have a dedicated team that's running the store, as Jason mentioned, and it's really important to us to work directly with the developers throughout the life cycle of your applications, not just getting up to launch, but into perpetuity, so that we can help make you guys successful and be successful together. And it's really important that we help you as developers so that your content not only looks great, but we want it to feel great as well. And we know that as long as we accomplish those things together, then we can help you reach great sales numbers. So we continue to learn a lot about what customers like and how they want to go about exploring and discovering content in VR. And as this image shows, we're really excited about store features like the ability to do cube maps, right? To give people a 3D panoramic preview as they're browsing through content. This is something that you fundamentally can't do outside of VR, and so we're really excited about it. And this is just one of a number of examples of cool store features that we're prototyping and developing to help people enhance their content exploration experience. And then, of course, one of the magical things about VR is that when people get through an experience, it ingrains itself into your mind, right? You think about it, you talk about it, you're passionate about it, you want to share this experience with other people. And sometimes you're on the go. And so for those times when you're not actually in the headset, we actually do have clients for web and mobile devices so that you can get access to your library and to new VR experiences on the go. So we're basically doing the best that we can to put VR into people's hands no matter where they are, and so that they can help share those experiences with other people. So now I'm going to pass the wand of control over to Chris Jurney. He's going to talk a little bit about our submissions and publishing.
Great, thanks, Aaron. I'm Chris. So I'm going to talk about the submissions process in three broad phases. And so those are the initial submission and automation checks that we run on that, the process of working together to get the game ready for the store, and then publishing it out for the first time. So the first of those steps is submission and automation. So this is a series of things you need to do. So the first is when you go into the developer dashboard, you're going to define your organization, who it is making this content. Next, you're going to define the title of your game and any localized marketing assets that you want to be associated with that title, all your descriptions and naming and stuff. Then you're going to sign an NDA so that we're able to look at your game and provide you feedback, and we're all protected there. Then you're going to upload a build. So once you send that build to us, we're going to run a series of automated validation tests on it, like make sure it boots, make sure it renders a frame, make sure it doesn't instantly crash. And then now you'll have a build submitted to us, and you'll be ready to take some next steps. So this year we're going to deliver beta builds as a feature. So you'll be able to take that build, and before you submit it to our formal process, you'll be able to deliver it to testers to try it out. So the next step is working together. Generally in this step, this is where humans get involved on our side, and we're looking for good games that customers like. So the initial sort of hard requirement there is the tech requirements, and those are stability and frame rate. So your game can't crash when users play it, and you need to maintain frame rate. So on Gear VR, that means a consistent 60 frames a second, and on the Rift, a consistent 90 frames a second. Once you've passed that, the human QA is going to get involved, and they're going to run tests on your game to make sure that it's a good functional experience. We're going to work together on defining a comfort rating for your game. How comfortable is it when users play it in VR? We're going to set an age rating, which is either 13 plus or 17 plus, based on the content of the experience. Then we're going to go into a business review. So that means setting dates and pricing for your app. And then once all that's ready, we will sign a distribution contract that lets us sell your game and put it on the store. And then the fun stuff, you will define your financial information for us so we can give you a whole bunch of money. And then we will release your game, and you can start your promotion, tell your family and friends, tweet about it, Facebook. OK, so once you're on the store, you're not quite done, right? Because you want to maintain an ongoing relationship with your title and with the store to maintain interest in your game. So that means a few things. One of them is updates. So you're going to want to push updates to your build to keep users interested. When you do that, it's not going to require a full cycle. So you don't have to go back through the full human process to get just a simple patch out to your users. You can patch quickly and often. You're going to want to do price changes, and we will work together with you on that to figure out what makes sense for your game, when to put it on sale, when to lower the price. And that's it. That's how you get into the store technically. So next up, we are going to go into the commonly asked questions. So we're just going to go through all the stuff that we get asked all the time about the store. And first up on that is Jason.
Oh, okay. So how do customers find and discover my game? This is really important. It's sort of on the front of everybody's mind. I think one reason we get asked this a whole bunch is probably more than half of you in the audience are probably cut your teeth in the mobile gaming world, and you're in there now. And it's one of the top questions is always like, how do I get found? I need to be searched. I need to get out of this big stack of things. That's pretty true in mobile. It's not going to be very true in VR for a few reasons. First of all, this is hard. It's different. It's not the same kind of ecosystem. You're going to build very complex things, and that idea of finding things out of thousands and thousands of a stack is not going to be the same problem that it is on mobile. Nonetheless, we will make things like search tools and algorithms and association things. So, hey, if you like this, you'll like that. Or type the name of my game in and I can find it. We'll have those simple bits. The other bits about how people will find and discover your game, which is sort of embedded in this question that we get, is they're kind of looking at us going, so how are you going to market my stuff? Like, how does this work? The frontline answer to that is our store's not for sale. So the way that our front pages are and what we show to folks, we're not going to like sell that like a billboard or sell it like ads or sell it to the highest bidder or go with the highest release at any given time. That's a possible way to run a store. But instead what we're going to do is we're going to act like proprietors. We're actually going to take a mix of data. We're going to take a mix of our expertise. We're going to take a mix of interest for our customers and make decisions based on that with you and with the rest of the community. When we do that, the first ecosystem shot that I showed you, when you think about our marketing decisions down the line as we're working with you, we tend to do these with a customer focus at that point. Because at the end of the day, that is what we're showing folks about the content they can get. It is what we're showing folks about the platform. So we'll always be thinking not only like, oh, what's selling really well? It's kind of smart to put that up in the front of the store sometimes. But if you're a good proprietor, you also think, well, what's interesting? What would keep my customers coming back? What should they see that they haven't seen in a while? And that's going to inform a bunch about how people see content. It'll also be a kind of store that won't just be on what's released in the moment. We tend to have things that will show up again and again, maybe because DLC gets released, or maybe because the levels get good, or maybe it gets a new review and gets discovered by PC gamers. So we'll be making all of those decisions as we think about how to market the store. The next question is, I get 2 in a row. How do I make money? So that is super important. The front-end answer to that one is we'll operate the store on a 70-30 split. It's probably what you all either knew or suspected. And we'll also have an in-app transaction system that we'll work with our developer relations folks and engineers. Will talk to you about our platform teams building this for you. And the in-app transaction system will be a way for you to actually sell lots of things in your game. You can sell items, you could sell gold, you could sell whatever you'd like. And we'll figure out a way to plug that into your game as you need it. That's a second way to make money. The third way to make money is not really about the nuts and bolts of how to get that money in from a customer. It's more about how do you make money down the line as a philosophical or business matter. And what we encourage you to do is to keep working on your game. Like I said before, these won't be games that just sort of fire and release out and then they're forgotten, or if you're not on the top of the stack, they're gone. We're hoping that what you'll continue to do is keep making your game better. Add levels, add new game mechanics, add polish to the graphics, do whatever you need to do. And that's going to keep that money engine going because customers will return. Customers will keep playing it that are your fans, and they'll tell their friend next to them and say, this has gotten super good. You should play more of this. So that's another way we encourage you to make money. I actually have 3 in a row. No, I went backwards. If you didn't like the answer, let's see if I gave the same answer. Can I sell my game on my website and on other digital stores? So I'll hand this over to Anna.
Thanks. So, I mean, as we've been talking about so far, we're working really, really hard to build a really great store. It's designed first for VR, and we're thinking a lot about how to make developers like yourselves as successful as possible in that store. But there are a lot of really great storefronts out there, and one of our other fundamental goals is to make you as developers as successful as possible. And that means getting in front of your customers no matter where they are. So if you have a game that uses our SDK, it uses our platform services, it ships on our store, we'll also give you keys. We're building a key system where you can take those keys, they'll be free, and you can use them for whatever makes sense for your game. So maybe you're going to do an OEM bundle or a giveaway or sell it on your own website. All of that is totally fine. And that includes selling it on other storefronts. So if you want to sell in Humble Bundle, Good Old Games, Steam, all those places, we want you to be able to get your game to those customers. So what great game services do we provide? So we talked a little bit about this at the keynote this morning. We're working really hard on a whole set of features that you guys can take advantage of as it makes sense for your games. We want you to use them where it makes sense so you can spend the most time designing your actual game experience. So we're building a bunch of stuff. We're building multiplayer matchmaking, lobbies, peer-to-peer networking, achievements, leaderboards, cloud saves, in-app transactions. There's a whole huge list. And all of that list came from conversations we had with developers like yourselves. So those are the things that will roll out first, but if there are things that aren't on that list that you guys feel you need to build great VR experiences, find one of us and tell us, because we want to hear that feedback so that we can build the things that you guys really need. In terms of what you do need to use on the platform, so any game that sells on our store needs to use our file delivery, updating, and commerce pieces, but other than that, you can pick and choose what makes the most sense for your game from the full suite of what we offer. There's also a talk right after this one that goes into some of the technical details about our SDK and what we'll be rolling out over this fall. So I encourage you to attend that and hear more about it. Thanks. It goes back to Jurney.
Nice. So what kind of data can I expect to get? So the answer to that, the short answer is that we're going to give you all the data we can to help you make good games and sell them. So the simplest form of that is sales as units and revenue over time with graphs and trends. So this is just a really crude representation of what it might look like as it's in development. But yeah, so we're going to give you basic sales data. We're going to give you information on your users. So active users, average total time per user, and over time we'll add more usage data so you can find out how people are using your app. We're going to tell you about the playtime that people are spending in your game and the session length by the end of the year. We're also going to give you stability data. So we're going to tell you initially just whether your app is crashing and how often. And then later this year, we're going to, eventually we will also add crash reporting. We are not going to offer like a game telemetry service, like an in-game analytics, but you're more than welcome to integrate any of the spectacular third-party offerings there. And on all these pieces of data and on the dev dashboard that all this appears in, we're super open to feedback. We drive the features we implement based on feedback from developers. So if you have something you want to see in the dashboard, let us know. So Aaron, will the platform and store be the same across Gear VR and Rift?
I'm super excited to talk about this.
Will they?
Actually, the answer is yes. So earlier I showed those couple of renderings of our Rift in our Gear stores, right? And it's really important to us that the experience be tailored and simple and elegant and crafted for VR. And it's really exciting that also your identity carries across both of those platforms for now, and in the future it'll carry across any platform that we offer. So you have just one account for Gear VR and Rift at launch over the course of the next 6 months or less, which is really crazy to say. And very exciting to say. So having our store platform and ID translate across those allows you as a developer to do really cool things. So for example, you could translate world state data from a Rift build to a Gear VR build or vice versa. We're really excited to see what you guys end up doing with that, but we've tried to make it as simple and elegant as possible. Anna, let's talk about concepts.
So we talked a little bit about concepts this morning, and really the whole idea around concepts is that VR is new, and we're all kind of learning together what works for gamers, for developers, and we right now have a platform called Share, which is a website where you can post some of those things that you're experimenting with and get them in front of customers. As sort of the platform evolves and the store evolves, we want there to be a place within the store and platform where you can continue to do that. So that's what concepts will be. And so concepts will let you take anything you're working on that's early in development. It could be a demo, it could be a gameplay snippet. It's really whatever experiment it is you're working on and want to find out more about. You can put that there and customers will be able to see it, download it, try it, and most importantly, give you feedback on that experience so that you can keep building and seeing what really works in VR and what doesn't.
Okay, cool. Some more exciting questions. Will you help me fund my game? This is one of the questions that we get a lot. And for us, it's hard to overstate how important it is to get great content on the platform. Not just content, but great content. And great content is what draws developers and consumers alike. It's what draws them into the platform and makes them want to stay there, makes them want to come back. So we have two groups that are dedicated to helping you guys as developers bring great content into the platform. The first of those groups is a group called Studios that Jason Rubin runs. I don't know if anyone saw the panel that they did earlier this afternoon. The Studios group goes out and targets and identifies developers to work with them on aspirational first and second party experiences. And those titles are aspirational experiences that help people get excited about the launches that we have coming up. We also have a publishing team, which we all represent. And our focus is working with the thousands of other developers who are interested in bringing VR content to life. So recently, Anna announced that we have a $10 million indie fund. And we're putting that to use not as a greenlight fund necessarily, but more to identify and help developers who are already underway, who have a really stellar VR concept that they've been prototyping and working on, and it's living and breathing. We go out and work with you to help, if needed, bring that to a consumer launch status, right? Sometimes we find the developers, sometimes they find us, but it always starts with something really exciting and novel and tailored for VR. The most important thing is to have that piece of functional code in hand, right? Something that really shows us what it is that you're building and helps us to adopt the same vision as you to see why customers would be excited about it. And then another question that's somewhat related, how can I get development hardware? So hardware is super critical to being able to deliver VR content. This is the reason why we did the DK1, DK2. We also have the Gear VR Innovator Edition that we've done for both Note 4 and the Galaxy S6. So we know how important hardware is, right? And it's a critical resource to be able to deliver a VR title. So we've also made some prototypes. Some of those include, I was around to see this actually, the HD prototype was one of the first ones that we showed publicly after the release of DK1. But we've also shown Crystal Cove, Crescent Bay, and here at the show, you can get your hands on and eyes on the Consumer Rift prototypes as well as the Oculus Touch or the Half Moon Bay prototypes that we've been talking about and showing. So these prototypes are really limited in number. They're hand-built, they're hand-calibrated, they're not hardened, they haven't been through that industrial process to make sure that they're sort of consumer-level quality yet, but they definitely are very functional. One of the interesting nuances is that because they're so involved to build and maintain, they're a little more tricky to get your hands on. That doesn't mean it's impossible, but we do recommend that you start always with the hardware that's available. That's why we've put it out there, and that's why we're working on the SDKs. As we announced today, we've got the 0.7 that just came out, and 1.0 will be out in December. So these SDKs, coupled with the DK2s or the Gear VR products, will help you to get your title ready for launch, and that's the best resource that you have at your disposal.
Another bit that's interesting is we won't really we've had developer kits up until now. Our consumer product will be the developer kit. So it's not like there's going to be a separate thing you need. So a lot of the questions that Aaron just answered, they kind of become moot once these are on the market. Sometimes the easiest way is you could just go to a store and get one. We'll be out there helping to provide them, but there won't be a separate developer kit build as they're out there. You can develop on what you buy.
So input, Chris.
Yeah, so what input should you target for your game? The answer is you should target whatever works best for your game. So that means a number of things. On the Gear VR, all the users that have the Gear are going to have a touchpad, so you should definitely use that. And then if it makes sense for your game, you should seriously consider adding gamepad support. On the Rift, you have more options. So the Rift is going to come boxed with an Xbox controller. So all your users are going to have that. That's a really good choice. Keyboard and mouse is very likely to be there on the PC, but it's not necessarily the easiest thing to use in VR. And then after the Rift, in the second quarter, the Touch is going to launch. And if you have a game that's focused on motion controls, then you should definitely use that. But you should base your choice of controls not based on what you think we would like or what you think is necessary, but what will make sense for your game.
And sometimes it's important worth stating, too, that there may be multiple inputs that are appropriate for your title, right? So that's really important to think about as well. I think there is some sentiment that Oculus is like, oh, it's all gamepad or it's all touch, and you must be one or the other. But there are a lot of things that we've seen that actually work quite well across both.
Yeah, if you look Aaron's right. When you look at touch today, when you go get demos or you've seen it, like that looks like a lot of a controller broken out and into your hand. So you get buttons here, you get analog sticks here, you have triggers, you have essentially the same thing as bumpers. So it gives you a whole bunch. It's quite possible there'll be quite a lot of overlap between them. But get your hands on both of them, and as Chris was saying, it is what you think is appropriate. And people will be very inventive with inputs inside of VR too. We've obviously made touch, and we think it's very important to have hand presence, and we have a gamepad, but you're going to be very inventive about what you can do with all of those things.
Jason, what's the best kind of game to build?
That's the funny thing to ask me. So, as if I've built games before. They gave me this question because we get this question all the time. They're like, and we get it in the context not as like Chris might get it as game dev to game dev, like having the technicalities of game mechanic, but really we're being asked like, well, what's going to fit with the store? What do customers like? What's the genre to be in? What's the vertical to be in? And the answer is there's no such thing. You should be making what you think is right. This is as Mike Abrash was talking today that these are the good old days. This is when it happens. So we don't give the advice of a vertical to fill or a slice to fill because we think you're going to make those new slices and verticals. And also there's no forbidden genres or types or mechanics in VR. We tend to have best practices at any given time. We'll tell you and we'll publish out things that say this works, this doesn't work. But those are, I don't know if you saw Ruben's talk before. Ryan was talking about the vertigo and the button in Dead and Buried. That's a really good example. I mean, you could have a rule like never give anybody vertigo ever. You can't have ledges. And all Ryan did was like, well, I'll just move the button in a little bit, but half the people have a lot of fun in that game actually kind of going like, oh my gosh, doing that thing of looking over the edge. So there's nothing forbidden in a type of game either. There are hard problems to solve. Obviously, motion's one that's on the top of everybody's minds. I don't know if has anybody had the touch demos yet of the new content? Has anybody gone out and played? Anybody play Bullet Train? Okay, so yeah, people are waving back and forth. So Bullet Train's a good example of solving some really fundamental things and doing fun things as a type of game. I wasn't in their minds when they were doing it, but it's obvious, they know quite a bit about like gunplay and fun and mechanics and that kind of world that they build. But they also, as they were going along, they did one of the first times where you're moving around in a very large space. You're not moving around, you're not locomoting with the analog stick, but you're teleporting around. And when you leave, everybody has the sense that they've actually not only traversed a very large space in that train station, but they've done it very quickly, and they've done it like a superpower. They don't feel like they've done a game trick. So they've done something there where they've solved a motion problem and made a really fun game. Also, you do get to pull bullets out of the sky. So they did do that, and that is awesome. Another game that when we get asked like this that I could pull out as an example is if you think about one of the other, did anybody play Surgeon Simulator when they were out there? Okay, yeah, Surgeon Sim's a great example of a best kind of game to build. So if you were us and you were trying to like show the delicate nature of the touch controllers and show exactly, you'd build Dead and Buried. You'd have the things reload and you'd have touch and you'd have toy box. And the guys at Bossa were like, these are awesome controllers. They let me put my hand, right where my paw is in the game, and I can move it around. And then they made like clumsiness really, really fun, right? You would think, well, that shouldn't be right. My hand should be doing the right thing. But here's taking Surgeon Sim, taking that controller that's meant to do quite a few things, using the inputs, and building this really crazy experience where the scalpels are still flying around and you still feel like you have oven mitts. But at the same time, if you notice and play it, you can do things like once you have that gross green intestine in your hands, you can poke it very delicately. They've done some really good jobs of like making it float around in your face. So there's no specific type of game to build. And every month that goes by, every week, every day that goes by, we see so many new things coming out. And not just as pitches and ideas, we're seeing them in actuality. We're seeing the code hit the road. We really are. People are building the things, handing them to us, or showing them to each other. And we're just being amazed at how people are solving flight or guns or experience or slowing things down. That's another good example. There's a lot of games out there that have nothing to do with traditional game mechanics anymore. We don't have to keep you super entertained staring at a flat screen. People will stop and stare for minutes at a time and think they're having a great experience. Something like the old Myst, which bored me to tears in a lot of ways. A game like Myst might work fantastically in VR because you can actually sit and look around and take a long, long time to do things. Or when you're puzzling something out that would be frustrating with a simple mechanic. People are willing to do that inside of VR. So the best kind of game to build, to answer the question, is build the game that you want to build. And ask us if you have questions about it. Or, Anna was alluding to this before, we work closely in conjunction with our platform folks, or our SDK folks. If there's something there in a mechanic and something you really want to pull off, tell us about it if you don't see it. It's quite possible we'll be inventing those things and working with you as we go along. So we just have a few more of these. Should I port my game? I don't know, Chris, should they port their games?
Probably not. So if you have a traditional PC game or a mobile game, it's pretty rare that a direct port into VR works well. There are examples that do, like Hitman Go by Square Enix is a pretty great example. It's kind of a tabletop puzzle game where it fits really well on a virtual tabletop, but generally it won't work if you just take a 3D game and try to shove it into VR. The place where the value shows up for existing titles is in leveraging the world's assets and IPs that you've already got, that your players are familiar for, and using that to make new VR-targeted experiences that players will be interested in before you even make it. So a great example of that is AirMech VR. They adapted a PC action strategy game they had already built, had a ton of excited players, and they've turned it into a really stellar native VR title without having to rebuild their entire engine, their entire stack. And they've made a super fun experience where you're in VR playing with their characters and their elements of strategy, but you're doing it in a way that is unique to VR. So the next question is, what engines can I use? The answer here is go nuts. Most major engines that exist have a VR integration already, like all of these. And we do a lot of work to make sure that there are great integrations on the two most broadly used platforms, Unity and Unreal. So those are great. As well, custom engines. If you've got your own tech that you've built from the ground up, it's pretty easy to add support by integrating our native SDKs. And if you have any problems with that, which you're not likely to, but developer relations engineers like me are here to help you make it work really well. Aaron, should I build non-game apps?
You should just be excited about building VR, period. I think it'll be interesting to see the way we think about games evolves over time, particularly with VR, right? But for now, the way we think about games, we've seen a lot of non-game things that are interesting, like House of Languages. This one came out of our Gear VR Jam, and it's a really cool sort of gaze-based mechanic that helps you learn a different language by looking at different objects and interacting with the character. That's a really good example. There's also the Matterport app that I'm a longtime fan of. I just think it's really cool that they can capture an environment and allow you to explore and look at this volumetric, real-world space. It's really going to fundamentally change industries, in my opinion, like the real estate industry. The Wild Experience is a really good example of a non-game app. We recently released that, but it's actually, it was shown for the first time months ago. And it allows you to get into the world of the Wild movie and sit there with Reese Witherspoon's character and go through this almost expansion, or you feel like you're in this missing chapter of the film. It's really kind of cool and exciting, and you're sitting there right in front of Reese Witherspoon, which is kind of cool. And then the LA Phil actually did a really great VR experience as well. It's sort of like a homage to the old Fantasia films, where you're in the point of view of being on stage with the orchestra and watching that amazing collaborative thing happen. But then you've also got these layered in visual particle effects and things to make it this fun experience. And I think that'll expose people to orchestral music, which I was raised on, but not many people I know are fans of anymore. So anyways, there's a lot of really cool non-game experiences, and what really should drive the answer to this question isn't so much like, is it games versus non-games or something else? It's more about, what am I really passionate about, and what are the unique skill sets and backgrounds and capabilities that I and my team can bring into VR. So as long as you can answer the questions of, is it cooler, is it better, is it particularly well suited for VR, I think you're on the right track, no matter what kind of game or non-game it is. And that's it. So those are some of the most commonly asked questions, but we definitely are excited about doing some Q&A with you and making this a live dialogue. So I believe there's a microphone over here on this side, and we'd love to hear some questions from you guys and do a little bit of banter.
Hello, my name is Davies. I'm just wondering, will there be a customer rating system for the games and apps that are on the store?
So we don't have one yet. We think about that a lot with customer rating systems, with star systems, up and downs, back and forths. There's a lot that goes into the dynamics of that. By the way, it's one of the advantages of being associated with Facebook. They happen to be really good about thinking about things like that. So we talked to some of their smart people about how to do that. But we'll be thinking about how to incorporate that into the platform because we want customers to have a voice, and we think that that's a really good way to have extra. Before, when I was talking about how do we market games, that's a really good way to have another force in there that shows rating systems. But probably if we have one, it might not look like what you're expecting, and it might not come out right away. What we do have right now is we've got the age rating bit, and we've got a comfort rating bit, and then we'll see how it goes from there. My guess is we'll have something very soon. The other thing we'll probably flirt with or do is to have like customer reviews, rather than just ratings, have a ways for customers to actually dialogue and write more than just a simple star mechanism.
I just see at the moment on Oculus Share that the comfort rating is actually used as the star rating. People don't put it in for comfort, they actually use it for the star rating anyway.
So you're right, they kind of do, and that's one problem and one reason why we need to have a reviewer rating system. The comfort rating there is not really meant to serve the same purpose as a rating system would. A rating system would be people saying, that's great, do it. A comfort rating system is trying to identify the population of the audience, like, oh, that's a good one for me, or that's not a good one for me. Like, I am highly tolerant of VR, and I would get attracted to, let's say, the low end of the comfort scale. If you called something uncomfortable, I would just go for it. Other people would be like, I need that information because I don't want to do that. But your question about ratings and reviews, we'll have functions like that because we need customers to give feedback into the system. You might not see it right away, and you also might not see it exactly the same way other folks have done it. We think a lot about it.
Okay, thank you.
So with social, are you going to be able to directly in-app be able to access things like, for example, okay, I just finished a game now, share on Facebook within VR, and then it like can post to your wall? Is that functionality going to be there?
So that probably won't be in the first release of the SDK. Those are great features, though, the kinds of things that if that's something you want to do, we definitely want to hear about that. Obviously, we know the Facebook guys pretty well. And we do think social is really, really important. And we think getting your games in front of customers is really, really important. So it's not on the immediate roadmap for this fall, but definitely something we're thinking about and looking at.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Guy from Virtual Desktop. My question is, do you plan to support user-generated content or mods, kind of like Steam workshops?
Not well. So Steam Workshop is a really robust thing that's been grown for a long time with an existing mod community. ModDB, game engines do it. Like there's this large piece. We would very much like to do that. We wouldn't do that right off the bat. Although what we think we'll probably do is games themselves might do parts of that. So there's going to be games. There are apps themselves in virtual reality that do that because you need to leave things for folks or make things for folks or leave things on tables. So you were saying you're with Virtual Desktop, right?
Right, so custom environments, things like that.
Right, so you'd be a good example of someone who we would love to work with you as you have that problem of like, okay, I need people to, like maybe the easiest, flattest user-generated content is literally a Post-it note, right? You need to like leave one. Well, we'd love to work with you either saying, well, how do we make it so your game does that elegantly? Or how do we make that so it's part of our platform APIs? And we will definitely get to the world where we're going to enable a lot of that through the platform because just like anything else you solve with the platform, we try to not have to make you rewrite a bunch of stuff you don't want to. Like if we can elegantly handle a bunch of those generalities, we can hand them back to you. But off the bat, we won't be having a large scale UGC system right off the bat, but I bet apps like yours are going to do it.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Hi, Alex from Cinehackers. I have a question about mobile, publishing mobile apps. What are the sort of size guidelines or restrictions? And also, if there are large video files, what's the best way to deliver that to users?
I don't know what the size restriction is on the mobile store.
It's pretty small. There you go. See, they know. They're paying attention. Yeah.
There you go. That's the man who sets it. So.
Incredible, actually. There's the file on your phone, and when you update it, you get the compressed version, then uncompress it. So a 500 meg game requires 1,500 megs at any given point. That's just tough for users, so it's stuck at 500 to make it release.
Right. So if content exceeds 500 megabytes, for example, a video file, is it possible to download that after the app has been installed as part of like?
Yeah,
I mean, you can pull whatever content you want after your app is running, right? You have access to the device.
Thank you.
So to repeat back, just so that since I'm mic'd up and Phil's not, it's 500 megs basically is the limit for
And
your initial app install.
And we'll constantly keep moving those things up or solving those problems. I mean, you're looking at early days for a dev kit, like video and fidelity and bytes and hell, even things outside of video, just when you need more space. We'll always be moving those up. I think a thing to take away from this is we definitely have a submission guideline, right? So you can actually get things to us. If you're running up against something, tell us. Like, we're not a certification house. These rules are not written in stone for any reason. You should be like, hey, this is dumb. That's too small. You're not letting me do X. And hands down, we'll probably start working on the problem. I mean, we might not do it right away, but we'd love to hear that from you when you do it. So when we have our guidelines and our pieces out, if you're running up against them, let us know that you are. We need that feedback from you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm an indie game developer from China. My question is, will the Oculus Store be available worldwide from the very start? Because, at first, the Gear VR Store only accepts credit card with US address.
So we're going to try to be worldwide. We won't operate in China right off the bat. There are some places we won't. We will be mainly in North America and Europe to start. There's various reasons why you start like that. There's various regs, currencies, pieces like that. We will try to get into China as quickly as possible. It's a very large market, but not right away. But I don't know the number of countries, but if you think about the general span of where you might reach with a console and those types of areas, we'll be in those right away. And we'll try to add payments and currency supports as we go.
Okay.
And by the way, if you're a developer in a country that we don't support with the store, we can still support you. So you might be a Chinese developer and say, I would love to make a game for the store. Well, by all means, do it. Like, get in contact with us, and we'll find a way, and you can publish out to the rest of the world. But we won't operate the store in some countries to begin with.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you for making a really long trip to come be at Oculus Connect. Yeah. Let's hear it for that guy. That's awesome.
So running up against something that needs some support on. And the store makes a lot of sense for
We brought an engineer with us. Great, go.
Excellent. So yeah, basically we have some utilities for some industrial applications that don't really make sense being launched through the store. And it's kind of eliminating Gear VR as a preferred platform, even though we really want to use it. But typically we'll have to do some typing interfaces and stuff just to configure some things, and then we jump into VR mode. I mean, things that just wouldn't really quite work. And even if we publish something, if you don't have like the $2,000 drone that we're making the VR cockpit for, it wouldn't really make sense to see that on the store. So is there some way we can get around that? Is there some future time when we can maybe launch an app without having to go through a store interface?
That's a good question. So right now, that's a good thing. Sorry, I totally know why you're running up against that. So you're talking about enterprise or industrial applications.
Correct.
You're talking right now specifically to Gear. The same thing may happen in Rift, the same kind of piece of like everything we just talked to you all about is consumer oriented. I'd love to talk to you more, as a matter of fact, about what you'd like to achieve on Gear. I think down the road what we should probably do is figure out when those reach enough critical mass to have some kind of subsystem that takes care of some of the platform pieces too, but doesn't end up on a consumer store. If you're a car manufacturer or you're a robot maker or something and you want to use VR as an application, it doesn't make a whole bunch of sense to have a listing in a consumer store for that, but it does make a lot of sense to have a way of getting that distributed right there. We'll do that very quickly. Right now, in all honesty, we're focused a lot on consumers because we need to get these first hundreds of thousands to millions of devices out into consumers' hands. And my bet is you'll see as you're doing industrial or enterprise applications down the road, we'll start building more of those as you go. Right now, we might ad hoc them a little bit. So specifically with companies like yours, we've been being a little bit ad hoc, but come find me afterwards, and I'd love to figure out a way to make sure you're doing what you want to do, because I think you should be doing things like that with the Rift and also with Gear. It's very handy, and to make sure you can get them to the folks that need them.
All right, if your customer list is small enough, when it launches, you'll be able to use betas for that. If you're not trying to sell,
that's a good point.
Or
you're not
also
trying to sell
our
the
key
product.
system. You could use our back end and then use the keys to distribute it outside the store to other folks.
All right, I'll talk about our application.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Hey guys, so I have two questions. The first question is that have you guys considered like the monetization strategies for like media content? And the second question is that, do you guys have some estimation as to the price range for games and media content that's going to be available, like, say, next year? Like, what is kind of like a ballpark estimation?
I'll take those out of order. So on the general sort of like ballparks of where things land, I really actually think the sky's the limit. It happens that Gear VR works as a mobile device, but I don't think that means it has anything to do with what's happening in mobile ecosystems. Those are made for a very specific reason. They have very specific historical bits. So I think there's going to be a range of prices. Also, because I talked about this earlier, we're having a curated store. There's not going to be a big race to the bottom. There's going to be a bunch of people like throwing a bunch of stuff out that clutters it up. So you're going to have more control and more ability to be seen and more ability to make longer term things that don't just flash out. I think price ranges run everywhere from free up into whatever makes sense for the game. I think you'll see a whole range, at least up until console type, pricing in that $50, $60 range. I'm sure people will make things up there. You asked this other question that's really, really on the nose about media a lot. A lot of folks in this audience may be making media, things where you're going to show 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes of video, and it's going to be maybe this wonderful VR video. You're going to do pieces like that. It's funny about thinking about how to monetize that. I think you all are going to solve that pretty well. It is a hard problem, though, because people are really used to getting high-quality content from services like Facebook and from YouTube that's free, that actually runs a lot longer than you can make VR content run for right now. But I think people are going to figure out how to embed that and make money off of it. It's just a little bit harder to do that in games. I don't have a good general answer for that one. I think it's a nettlesome problem. You're going to see folks that'll make content that's very specific and people will buy. I do think that VR customers, if you make good things, they will want to pay for them. They understand, and that's part of the challenge.
I would add a couple things. One of the great things about the Gear VR Innovator Edition store is that it's given developers an awesome platform to experiment and learn, right, before we hit the consumer launch that was announced earlier today. So that's really awesome. And you can go in and see a lot of differently priced titles and experiences in there. So that's really cool. And then thinking about the media experience, who in here has seen Henry? Did anyone see Henry here at the show? Okay. So in the same vein that's a fundamentally different media experience than what someone might expect going into VR, right? It's not just a stereoscopic, rendered, panoramic thing. It's this different cinematic narrative experience. I think that some of those new types of things, hopefully, will support a different monetization model. So we're excited to see what you guys come up with. It's going to be awesome. And I think the great thing is we have the structure underneath to help support whether that ends up being like you want to do a IAP or you want to do a premium price model. We'll help you figure out how to solve that and how to make it better than what's there already, hopefully.
Daniel from Buy Me Games. I just noticed voice chat wasn't mentioned in the list of application services. Are there any plans for that?
Very much so. We definitely want to build voice chat. It's not on our first list that would probably come out before launch. But our head of platform engineering is right there.
Yeah, he's taking notes. I'm watching it.
Working on it.
Thanks. Thanks for.
And we definitely know we need it. In the product, there's an embedded microphone, right, and headphones. So you can tell from Toy Box. Like, are we going to do? Of course, we're going to do voice. Like, we have to. It's not going to be one of the first sets that come out, but it'll follow pretty quickly. And like I've said about other things, is if you're making something that really needs voice, like you think you're pushing something with voice, come talk to us. And not only will we talk to you about like, oh, that's, how do we get that out? But we can hook you up with the platform engineers and say, oh, right, we should probably do that for them, or that's another type of use case. But voice is very important. We're going to build it.
That'd be great. Thanks.
And you shouldn't have a dependency either, right? As Anna mentioned, we're not forcing you to use our VoIP solution even when it does come out. So if you have some VoIP backend that you want to use or whatever it might be, we're not going to block that.
Hi, Eric Hine from Archiac Games. I got a question about the age ratings. Because right now it's 13 plus. And a lot of the times I see a lot of potential when it comes to like younger audience and education and kids and storybooks. And obviously the iPad is a lot for animated stories. Do you guys have any plans in the future on like being able to reduce that, or is there like a roadmap for trying to get the age ratings down so younger kids can start playing with the platform?
Not now. So the ratings that we have are equivalent because of what our age is for the device, for the product itself, which is 13 up, which is a combination of business, regulatory, and really a bunch about ergonomics. I mean, when you put a device on somebody under 13, they have smaller heads, their IPDs are like that. We really need to get a device out for the folks that own 970s, the adults that own 970s. So you can see where we're going to be targeting the problem sets we're going to target. So in the near future, no, we won't have that. But I could see down the line, obviously we want to adopt or broaden this out. And of course, if VR catches on, kids will use VR. So we'll be solving it. But it wouldn't be something near term for those reasons.
Okay, thanks.
Hi guys, I'm Jerry. I have a question about when next year the Oculus App Store launch, will you support the micro commercial system in the game, so the player can buy the virtual items from the game?
Yes, we will.
So
simple answer, yes.
Okay.
And the way we'll do it, by the way, is I think you should go to the talk after this. You need to go see Adam and Gareth talk about this. We won't do item servers. We'll do the commerce bit in, but you would run your own item servers back and forth. But you'll be able to sell things in the transaction. But go see Gareth and Adam talk about this.
We have thought a lot, too, about the user flow in VR for doing in-app purchases. So they'll talk a little bit about that as well. But we've thought about how to solve that when you're in VR.
Thank you.
Hi, so you guys talked a lot about IAP and for purchase merchandising. What, do you guys have any plans for ad-supported or usage-based, like Amazon Underground, by any chance?
Not at the moment, but that's a pretty smart thing to think about. We're always, this goes back to my original point, we're always thinking about ways to make our development community successful and give customers what they want. Right now, we're pretty honed down on like first-time purchase things, in-app transactions, because that's mainly what you all are building. Most of those things are perfectly suited for that. So we don't have any plans for that right now, but it's possible. Those are all smart things we could look at.
Hi, Landon from the Campfire Union. I was wondering, because the consumer model of the Gear VR is S6 and newer, are we still required to support for Note 4? And if not, is there going to be a way to tell the consumer that it is Note 4 compatible?
So we'll have to tackle that in our store. So we're always helpful. So front-end question, we're always trying to get as many devices carried along in the wake of this as possible. You're asking specifically in mobile. There's some harder things about that than there are in the PC world. What we'll do is I don't have that on the tip of my tongue right now, but we would make that apparent to you, first of all, through our documentation, whether you have to do it or not. If you start making a choice not to do it, we have to tell users that it's not possible. And right now, I think there are a few things in the Gear VR store that are actually marked that way, that only work on, right? There are things right now.
Yep.
So we do it right now. So as that comes up and like something either doesn't support for one reason or another, we'll make it apparent to users that they should or shouldn't do that. We could also maybe make some tech for that as well. But we're going to try to get as many devices going backwards as we can. Right now, for the new stuff, if you're targeting, S6, Note 5, things like that, you're going to be fine.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I think that is it.
Good.
All right.
Thanks very
much for coming.
Thank you.